Just gotta get these, there's the 2 screws here. This is just for show. Then there's screws under these 3, bottom right and top. You can lift these pads however you want. I usually take a small, very small flathead bit and I just kind of push gently on the adhesive that's underneath until it lifts just enough of the pad. So I can fit my screwdriver in there. Now this way of taking off all these is not necessarily the same for every AES. Because some of them don't have a flat spot right there as far as I recall. It's been a while. Hey, Michael. So when you're taking this off, you want to be careful because in the front it's got the volume controller ports and the switch, and they've kind of rocked it into place, so you kind of want to pull it back for this and when you take out the board especially. Ooh, nice. There's some webs there. And this is not necessarily the cleanest one. So I want to clean up a couple of these things I'm seeing here real quick before we get started. That's kind of gross. Now that we have the top off, take out your power switch. And you're gonna take screws out across the board. You have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you have 8, 9 on the memory card port. 10, 11, 12, 13. The ones on the memory card port are longer than the ones around the board. So keep that in mind. And the ones on the cartridge slot are longer than those. Them all separated as much as possible. So what we're going to do today is install unibios, which allows you to basically switch languages on the go, since Neo Geo AES cartridges are programmed multilingual and they're technically region free. So we're going to be removing the BIOS on this one. Looks like some hot glue or something here. And the BIOS is right here, identified by that Toshiba chip. This needs to be wiped. So now that we have all our screws out, you want to be very careful getting this out. You want to, again, rock it towards yourself, allowing these to kind of slip outward. I don't know if you can see that. These to slip outward. I'm going to flip it over. The BIOS is here, As you can see, it's these set of pins and these set of pins. One thing to note is these boards are very fragile, not the thickest, and are very susceptible to heat trauma. You also have a lot of thin traces, very thin traces around here, so they're incredibly irritating to patch if they get damaged. Hey Ryan. Just gonna tune up my soldering iron. So it's ready. I like to use this. I believe it's the Engineer SSO2. And you go. Pretty good. So the whole point is to desolder this, add a socket in, and install unibios. So if you don't get the solder sucked out the first time, don't go again immediately. Try to move on to the second one and come back, because you do not want to have too much heat in one area. So I'm going to show you guys. See if you can see that. Where is it? As you can see, it sucked up the solder pretty good on that one. Once you're done, squeeze out the solder. You want to, if you're pushing out the solder from here, make sure it comes out completely and do it away from the board so no little flakes get left on here and short something out. And check on your soldering iron every so often to make sure it's not getting like oxidized or anything, so you get maximum heat transfer. I got this AES sent to me from a friend who also is technically a customer as well. He does hold on. I'll come back to these in a second, because after you're done desoldering and sucking up the solder, sometimes they do stick to the through hole. So you want to go back and get those, but we are going to move on to the next one. And if they are, you can always use your iron to kind of push them gently. And once you've pushed them out of the outer edge of it, you usually can use a little bit of wick, get that little extra. So now there are quite a bit of pins here. So just so you know, this will be taking a little bit of time. Is that a metal tip on your shutters? Okay. Yeah, because it actually has, if you look, it's got a little metal rod that runs all the way down here. When you push on it, it pushes the solder out. It's just a part of the design. So solder doesn't obviously stick. Every time you push the solder out of your solder sucker, if you're using this method, make sure to double check visually that there's nothing left in it, because it's not going to create a good suction if you're not. That one did not work at all. When it comes to boards like this, also, I just want to make sure everybody knows. I know Phil has said in the past, and I know a lot of other people say this too, do what makes you feel comfortable. This is not one of those boards where you would do what makes you feel comfortable when it comes to desoldering. You try to remove all this with wick, you're leaving the iron near these traces too long, you will sever them. Oh, it didn't work. Just remember, if it doesn't work, you can always add a tiny bit of solder left to it. Just a tiny bit. You don't want too much because it will flood to the opposing side pretty quickly. That one's... So since that one's being a little bit stubborn, I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to retin the tip of my soldering iron. After you do enough points, it does need to be retinned, honestly. That one's being very stubborn. If you have wick and you have it cut to a point, sometimes you can also get it, but I'm only going to try this very briefly. Yeah, that one might have solder on the top. And it does have some. So we'll come back to that. Shit. Bag right there. I would normally have my smoke absorber running, but then none of you guys will be able to really hear very well. Now the reason why this solder sucker is great is it can handle being put through heat. Since the end is made of silicone, you can rest your iron on the point. The silicone can rest on the iron and not get destroyed. Take a sip. Hold on. Still waking up. All right, so what I like to do is go through, since we already did the top row, I like to check to make sure that all these pins are free. You can gently push on them with your iron or your finger if they are not moving because they are stuck to the side of the through hole. You can have your iron at the bottom closest where the through hole is and gently rock it back in, but do not be too forceful. Like a couple of these right now, we're stuck. That one's good, that one's good. So it looks like we have one right there that needs some wick. Be that one. The best way to get it sometimes if you're using wick is if you chop it at an angle so you can have the tip of the wick kind of pushed in towards the through hole itself. It will allow itself to heat up closer to it. Alright, so let me see about this one. See if there's an extra amount on the top, and there is. So sometimes you can check on the top here. This is very common with the AES boards. They have a lot, they tend to have solder at the top, which gets a little bit stuck. So I'm going to chop off a little bit more of my wick here. And then you can go from the top and undo the extra solder that's sitting there. Now if we flip over, that one should be free now. Yep. So now this whole row is free. We can start moving on to the bottom. What's my preferred mod work beverage and energy drink? Without a doubt. If we're gonna go specifically, which one? Red Bull and Amp would be nice, but kind of tend to be on the pricier side, so I do have a Monster today. It was on sale. So now we have this top row done. We're gonna work on to the bottom row. Whole nother set here. Once again, be very careful. You have to be more careful, honestly, with this top section, because if you can see how many traces are running to the top, the bottom is literally mostly ground pins, except for the last one here, and then more ground pins. So these may be more stubborn, but they are less, I'm gonna say less crucial, because there's no data running to them, but at least from this side of the board. When we're done with all this, we will clean up a little. Well, that was unusual. Never had it happen like that, where I'm desoldering and instead of when I'm pulling away, the solder's here, it got stuck right on the tip of the pin. There is a more preferred, also soldering iron tip. I am using a chisel tip, which is not necessarily as recommended, but it is possible as long as you're just very careful and you know your iron pretty well. And some of you are back. Saw that somebody went away for a second. And that happened again. That one's likely to have some on top. I'm gonna retin my soldering iron real quick. Just gonna help out that much more. I guess just to give you guys an idea of what unibios also, just the process. If you do want unibios for your Neo Geo AES or your MVS or your CD, You do want to go to the Universe BIOS website and contact Raz, which is the owner. I think he charges about $24 for each chip. For the brand new version, at least. There is a free version, which usually is like the older version of them. But when you get Universe BIOS from him, and it's the current one, he will custom flash your serial number that you provide so it displays on the boot app. He also does that to keep track of who has the BIOS, so nobody is distributing without his permission. The one I'm going to be installing is an official brand new 4.0. Bought by the customer. All right, so now that we've desoldered them, we need to check our pins. Also want to see if there's any additional solder on the top of this. There is, so hold on. Let's get that taken care of. Around. Let's double check that these are all loose. You most definitely want to have these all 100% loose when you are removing the BIOS. The vias on these are extremely thin. And they will break. If you do not have them freed up. So it looks like that second one might be kind of stuck. Oh, you got disconnected? Okay. Tends to happen a lot with Facebook streams, especially with the ones I'm doing. Not entirely sure why. Okay. Double checking here. stock chip is out. Now that it is out, we want to inspect our points to make sure nothing got destroyed. That all vias are free of extra solder and that they are also having no damaged through holes. So I do see some extra solder right there. So I'm going to clear that up. Looks like everything is good on the top. Let's flip it to the bottom. Bottom is also good. So now, take some isopropyl alcohol, Q-tip. We're gonna clean both sides. You want to make sure there are no extra little pieces of solder like I just saw right there. You do not want anything to short out. Now we have to clean the bottom, we're going to clean the top. All right, nice and dry. So now that we have completely clear, no solder, the through holes, I keep saying that, the through holes are completely clean. And we have cleaned it with some isopropyl alcohol. We need to install a socket. It is highly, highly recommended you put a socket, especially in SNK consoles, because there tends to be a lot of issues with these consoles, and if you have a socket, you're not leading this board into the direction of more heat and more damage potentially. You can also use a diagnostic BIOS, and you can add universe BIOS like we're about to do. So this is the type of socket you can use. It's got the little double-sided entry. Whoa, that's not good. This is the type of pins. You want to make sure they're completely straight before you and put it into the board. Now I need to let it sit in there. So it's got a bent pin. You want to check that it's flush to the board. And flipped over. Get out your flux. Sorry, I have allergies. What you want to do is hold on to the bottom of the socket that you have put in with all these pins here. Get your flux and go on the four corners We're going to apply just a little bit of solder the informal way, just so we can have it sitting in place. So now that it is held in place, we're going to go ahead and add some flux across all those pins. We're going to do one side at a time. Don't want that flux sitting on there too long. Okay, see you soon, Brian. So we're gonna go one at a time. You do need just very little solder for each of these. And also because you have the flux on, it will grab pretty quickly, but it also heats up quicker. So you want to be very careful about how long you're on it. Then go back to that first point. There you go. So we've done the first section. We're going to clean up. Clean up as much of that flux as possible. Don't drag too hard on these pins because they will get the Q-tip fluff left on there. Okay, so now we got that one. Let's go for the bottom. Yeah, just get a little more flux. I use the jelly flux. Prefer it over the no clean liquid form. You can use the liquid one if you want. And let's go for round 2. Hopefully you can see that pretty well. This is not a board I would recommending you to drag solder. Just due to the consistency that this board really requires. It's a very, very, very picky board. It's susceptible to a lot of issues. Once again, clean up the board with your isopropyl alcohol. And you want to inspect all your solder joints. Make sure there is complete contact in every one of them. It's looking pretty good. So now that it's cleaned, socket is installed. We're going to grab our new BIOS. Once again, this is where you can purchase unibios BIOS 4.0. You provide your email and the serial number at the bottom of the bottom shell, and they'll custom flash BIOS, so when it starts up, it will have your serial number on there. Do not receive unibios and redistribute it with your serial number on there. They will come after you, I'm just saying. So, no idea why it comes with matches other than maybe to protect it a little bit more. And now we have our brand new unibios BIOS. We are going to line it up. And it is slightly outward, so I'm going to push these pins in gently. Maybe that'll be a little bit better. That side seems to be okay. This side is the picky one. Just double checking the fitment real quick before I push down. Now that I've pushed it in, we're going to double check to make sure all the pins are lined flush. You want to make sure they have complete full contact. And that's how you install unibios. So for the sake of the customer, I'm going to re-include their stock BIOS back in here for them. Just in case they want it, you never know. And now we're going to quickly put this back together. Give it a quick test run. You want to rock the front in first. Being very, very careful about the volume. When it's going in, it will feel correct. You will know that you've put it into there correctly. Now, let's see here. The 4 bolts, I can't talk today. The 4 screws that go into the cartridge are the longest ones. So let's go ahead and do those first. if I am not mistaken, Universe BIOS does not follow the color pattern for the test, the on boot test. So keep that in mind. The two semi-shorter screws go on to the cartridge slot here, onto the bottom two. And then we have the remainder of our screws covering the outside of the board, at least for the inside here. Start over here by controller port 1. Work your way around. So now this board looks like it is missing, wait, no, it's not. I thought it was missing a screw right there, it's not. Okay. Go grab your top shell. And you apply the top shell gently. You turn it over. Now, at the beginning when I was removing these screws, we had the two here. The longer of the two goes here. The shorter one goes right there. And your three remaining screws go under here, here, and here, the top and the bottom right. Gently lift that, those feet covers. And you sneak the screws underneath it. To whoever is here, we are just wrapping up the Universe BIOS install. Trying to get these to sneak under is a little bit tricky sometimes because it is very far down there. The screw tends to kind of wobble its way down. We're about to test in a moment now. Once I can manage to get these screws in. Okay. Now we've installed unibios. We have reassembled our AES back together. I'm going to hook this up real quick and then show you in a second. I did forget to install the power switch, so I'm gonna have to do it the wrong way, but I will come back and do that again. So as you can see, Universe BIOS starts up at the beginning. Gives you the option to change the language, the region. And now you have it running the game. Now that we have successfully installed UniBIOS, but I have forgotten to install the switch. I'm gonna turn it off and get back to that. If you guys want to continue watching it with that, I will open it again. Hold on. Power switch. Should have remembered. Thank you, Andrew and Brian. Also, Brian, I do not have windjammers. You can graciously donate that to me if you want. That would be lovely. Let's get that power switch back in. Hopefully this video was helpful to all of you. Now we have a power switch. Just rests like that. You have it where the little peg is facing this way and it's on the top. Why would somebody put a sad react on this? Do you not like modifying expensive consoles? Wonder if I ruined somebody's day by changing its originality. Now that it's no longer stock. But Universe BIOS is quite sought after in the Neo Geo community. Okay, so after our testing, we got our power switch back in. We are done. I'm gonna end the stream here. If anybody has any questions, you can always PM me or leave a comment. Thanks for watching.